Today we are talking about bounties. More specifically, as per the title, bounty efficiency. If you care about efficiency, this video is for you. If you're playing Diablo just to have fun, you're playing your own builds, you are just kind of enjoying the hack and slash model, there's probably not going to be much here for you. But Diablo is a game of efficiency. If you're playing it seriously, multiple hours per night, you should be interested in efficiency. You should be interested in getting the most done in the amount of time that you have. So whether you want to farm bounties or farm rifts or do greater rifts, whatever the task is at hand, you're probably focusing on at least some layers of efficiency. So bounty efficiency is something that I think gets completely skipped over, right? We often talk about how we can make the best T10 speed rift build. We often talk about how we can make the best speed greater rift build. And a lot of videos focus on getting the build right, getting the skills right. But bounties are a whole nother beast. They're not like Nephilim rifts. They're not like greater rifts. They're their own thing. So to do them efficiently, you have to, again, change your character. You have to modify how you play to fit the current objective. So that's what we want to talk about today. The end of this video has a full game of bounties. It's all on T10. It's about 25 minutes long. If you want to skip ahead, you can check the description for that jump. Between now and then, we're going to talk about all sorts of different things. We're going to talk about the cube. We're going to talk about the recipes. We're going to talk about even options in your settings that you should change or that you should bind so that you can get through bounties faster. All right, so why do we make this video? Bounty efficiency is great for a lot of different reasons. You could be farming your 10,000 bounty achievement, right? So doing them as fast as humanly possible is important. Doing them solo when you're farming the achievement is also important because unless you're in the zone when the bounty is completed, you don't get credit for it toward the achievement. So doing them solo is the only way to guarantee that every bounty is yours. If you did split bounties, you'd only get credit for the ones that you did. Maybe you want bounty mats to reforge your items. Maybe you want endless mats so that you can cube every power in the game. You know, whatever your objective is, bounties, efficient bounties, are going to better suit your playstyle. So that's reason number one. I want to help people find ways that they can do bounties more efficiently, get more done per hour, per minute. The other reason is that there was a recent post on Diablo fans that talked about the efficiency between crafting rare items into legendaries or crafting reforge legendary. And both of these are cube recipes. One takes a rare item and it turns it into a random legendary. The other one takes a legendary and turns it into the same legendary, but just gives it another chance to be ancient and reroll its stats. So let's talk about the entire layer of variability. When an item drops in the game, it has to pick what it is. Pants, dagger, two-handed mace, it's got to pick first. And then it decides what its quality is going to be. Is it going to be uncommon? Is it going to be rare? Is it going to be a legendary? If it's a legendary, it then has to decide what legendary it is. So let's say it dropped pants, right? And it decided those pants are going to be ancient, or rather legendary. And then it has to decide whether or not they're going to be ancient. And then it has to decide what stats are going to roll on it. So we've got all these multiple layers of variability that happen when an item drops. We step up one when we go to Kadala. So we go to Kadala with our pockets turned out and our blood shards in hand, and we say, we really want pants. We really want hexing pants. So we spend all of our blood shards and we end up with a whole bunch of rare quality pants, and we end up with a couple of legendaries. Hexing pants wasn't one of them. Okay, so what did we lose here, right? In a normal rift, you have a chance at getting anybody's pants. You could get monk pants on your crusader. You could get demon hunter pants on your wizard. And they could roll stats that aren't your primary, right? As a crusader, you want strength, they could roll int. So you have that in your loot table. It's a small percentage, but it's still in your loot table. When you go to Kadala, you remove that chance. It's now tailored to your class. It's now tailored to you. You're only going to get pants that your class can roll, and you're only going to get pants that are going to roll strength. So we still have the layer of quality variability, but we've lost some of the randomness, and we also get to pick what the item is. So when we open a chest, it could be pants, it could be a dagger, it could be whatever. We go to Kadala and we say we want pants. So now we're being more specific. We're farming, more focused. Then when we move into the cube recipes and we start with the upgrade rare, let's say we went to Kadala, we gambled pants, We come to her with all of, we come to the cube with all the rare items that she gave us, all the yellows, and we put our crafting materials in there, and she's going to give us a pair of legendary pants. So now we're removing the quality variability. It's always going to be legendary, but we don't know what specific legendary it's going to be. Let's say we're still looking for hexing pants. Well, we craft, we get invokers. We craft, we get Rolands. We craft, we get Icons. We craft, we get depth diggers. We craft, we get name a thing. So it's still random. We could never get hexing pants, or we could get 5 of them. So we've removed another layer of variability. We don't have to worry about what quality the item is. But we still have to worry about whether or not we're going to get the specific legendary we want, whether it's going to be ancient or non-ancient, and what stats it's going to roll. So we're at least down to 3 layers of variability. The next step up from that is the Reforged Legendary. So the Reforged Legendary is the one that requires the Act-specific bounty mats, and this is why it's relevant to this video. The Act-specific bounty mats only come from doing bounties. And the other material that's required is Forgotten Souls. So there's no shared material between the upgrade and the Reforge. But you can't get bounty mats in rifts, and you don't get a lot of death breaths doing bounties. So in a way, the farming method is mutually exclusive as to which recipe you're going to be able to do the most of, but you're going to have to decide which one is better for each piece of gear that you have, or that you want in the rare upgrade point of view. So the Reforge takes the item that you give it. Let's say we finally found some hexing pants, or let's use the even worse case scenario. We haven't found them, but a wizard friend in our game found some hexing pants, and he dropped them on the ground for you, and you took them. Now they have int on them, which isn't great, but you go to your cube, you take your int hexing pants, you throw in your bounty specific crafting materials, you put in your Forgotten Souls, and out comes a more tailored pair of hexing pants for you. It's going to drop the int, and it's going to put strength on it because you're a crusader, and strength is your skill. So reforging is a great way to turn items that would normally be bad for you into better items, and it's also a way to focus farm a very specific item. We've now removed the last few layers of variability. When we put our hexing pants in and we put our materials in, we know a pair of hexing pants are going to come out the other side. So what are we actually rolling? We're re-rolling the stats, and we're re-rolling whether or not it's ancient, non-ancient. So every time we put in these materials and we hit the transmute button, we could end up with ancient bad stats, we could end up with non-ancient bad stats, we could end up with ancient good stats, we could end up with non-ancient good stats. So we've really cut down on what is it going to be, what quality is it going to be, is it going to be legendary, what legendary is it going to be. We've removed all of those layers of variability, and we've brought it down to just the basics. So Reforged Legendary is really great at those items that you can't really find a lot of, because Diablo is a numbers game, right? It's about finding as many of the thing as you can and hoping that one of them is eventually good. So the study we were talking about that we saw on Diablo fans put a time value on finding X number of materials. So the question was, should I be upgrading from rare, or should I be reforging my legendaries? Which one's more efficient? Since the materials have to be farmed in different manners, I want to pick one and go after it, whichever one's going to give me the best results. So the first thing that the author had to do was set a time value to farming all of these materials. And once he had a time value to it, he could set a per minute per recipe value. Okay, so it takes X number of minutes to do one recipe. So now we have a value for each type of method. The next thing you have to look at is how common an item is. I'm not going to go into the numbers. You can check Diablo fans, and I think there was a Reddit post on it. But what the conclusion came down to was, if it's a common item, aka Crushbane, two-handed mace, craft two-handed maces. You're bound to get 120,000 Crushbanes. It's just going to happen. Crushbanes are everywhere. If you're looking to get a furnace, it's unlikely that upgrade from rare is going to produce you a furnace because it's a rarer dropped item. You don't find them out in the world a lot, so the same rules apply when you're crafting them in the cube. You're not going to see a lot of them, unless you just get lucky. RNG is RNG after all. So if it's a rare item, reforge it. Basically find one, it doesn't matter which one, and just reforge it until you get the one that you want. Now, that's the bare minimum basics of it. Is it rare? If it is, reforge it. If it's common, craft it. So he has very defined percentages on there, and there is a spreadsheet out there that tells you how common something is and what the percent chance is that it's going to drop via crafting or in the world. So if you want to get really technical and you want all the math behind it, I would suggest going out there and trying to find that spreadsheet and trying to find all that math. Now, what does this have to do with bounty efficiency? The per minute value that he assigned, he or she, the author of this study, the per minute value that they found for bounty materials was at 1 minute per one material. Okay, so what does 1 minute per one material mean? If you're doing bounties on T10, which is where I recommend you do them, if you can't quite do bounties on T10, farm more gear, do bounties later. My recommendation. So if you're doing them on T10, you're going to get 5 act-specific bounty materials from your normal cache. Okay, so 1 act is going to give you 5. But bonus acts appear, right? So if you're turning in a non-bonus act, stop. Stop doing that. Only turn in bonus acts. The bonus cache that you get from doing a bonus act will give you another 5 crafting materials on T10. Make sure that we're specific about that. So T10, 1 act bounty, provides you with 10 crafting materials. Cool. So he set a 1 minute per one value. That means that each act takes 10 minutes. And we've got 5 acts in the game. So he is stating that 1 full game of T10 bounties would take 50 minutes. To me, that is a huge overestimation. Now, we know that he's probably basing these values off of solo play. Totally understandable. You would want to go to the minimum. Not everybody plays in groups, right? Not everybody even plays with 4 people. Some people play with 2, some people play with 3. So we want to go to the bare minimum. We want to say, what's the average for a single player? How quickly can they do bounties? Because we assume that 2 people can do bounties much faster than a single person could. So we're kind of going worst case scenario, but 50 minutes for an entire game of bounties is massive. I think you should be clearing them significantly faster. And so much faster that I feel like there's a huge breakdown in how people are doing bounties. Now, I've played a lot of 4-player split bounties, and yes, there is a lot of variance in how people attack bounties. But I do believe that there is an extremely efficient way to do it, and you can constantly build and constantly speed your character through bounties if you just start to learn some of the methods. So I think it's more of an information loss rather than people just wanting bounties to take longer, because the only reason you're doing bounties is to get bounty-specific crafting materials. You're gaining nothing else from it. It's just those materials. So no matter what your playstyle is, you should be wanting to get those done as fast as humanly possible so you can get back into doing greater rifts, so you can get back into farming keystones to do more greater rifts. Because greater rifts offer you the biggest amount of power. While perfecting your gear is awesome and it gives you a lot more power, it's going to be a lot less power gain than just getting decent ancients, well-rolled gear that's not ancient, and pushing greater rifts and having a high paragon. So bounties fill a very specific role, and doing them inefficiently is just a huge disservice to yourself and your own time. So that's what we're going to move on into. We're going to move on into gearing, cube basics, and how we can set ourselves up to do bounties. All right, so let's take a look at the cube. We'll talk about the basics, and we're going to show you the 2 recipes we were talking about in the intro, the upgrade from rare and the convert, or rather the reforge legendary. So the basics of the cube is that it allows you to gain the power of 3 different legendaries without actually having to wear them. So you can see here that we've chosen the Mortal Drama. It's a 2-handed flail. You essentially get 1 weapon slot, 1 armor slot, and 1 accessory slot. That's what these are. right? So we've chosen a two-handed flail. Now we can't dual wield flails, so the cube comes in handy because it allows us to get the power of that flail without actually having to have it equipped. Same thing with the chest. We can't wear two chest pieces, but we want the effect of both items. The cube allows us to do that. The accessories are really random in their abilities, and they're kind of all over the place, but there's usually like a handful that are going to be good depending on what your role is. The Avarice Band is in particular very good for speed clearing, in conjunction with the Boon of the Hoarder, legendary gem. But I don't want to go into all of that. This is not about that. So let's look at the upgrade rare item recipe. So we're going to take our rare item, we're going to take our materials, death breaths, reusable parts, arcane dust, failed crystals, and we're going to tell it to go. Now this is the recipe where you are always going to get a legendary, you just can't control which one it is. So we put in our mats and we got out some gladiator gauntlets. We certainly don't want those. These would be the gloves we were looking for, but we did not win. So basically you would take another pair of rare gloves, you would put the mats back in, and then you would go again. Now at the 25 death breaths per recipe, this isn't cheap unless you're just swimming in death breaths, which you eventually will be swimming in them if you're farming T10 rifts quickly and you're getting a bunch of keystones. Champ packs on T10 usually drop 2 death breaths. Finding a gelatinous sire in T10 will result in like 20 to 60 death breaths. So it's insane how quickly you can get them on T10. So that's the only thing holding you back, and you don't get many of these while you're doing bounties. That's what we were talking about earlier. Now the Reforge legendary recipe is the one that requires the bounty materials. So we're going to take our legendary, right? These are the ones we want to be ancient. We want to find an ancient pair of these. We're going to put in our bounty materials and our forgotten souls. We're going to hit transmute. Now the end result was just different stats, non-ancient. Okay, so we would just keep going with this, right? We would just keep putting our mats in and hoping that we would get ancient. We didn't, right? So again, it's going to take a while. Much like the crafting a random pair would take a while to find me some Saint Archus, or some Saint Sneezies, as I call them. Just as hard as it would be for me to actually find a pair of these, finding the well-rolled ancients from reforging was just as uncommon. But we are removing that layer of variability, right? We know that Archus are always going to come out the other side when we reforge. When we are upgrading a rare, we never really know what's coming out the other side. But it's not like these gloves are super uncommon. If I really wanted a better pair, I would do both. These gloves aren't that uncommon, and I am enjoying doing bounties. So I'm going to be doing bounties. I'm going to be doing T10 speeds. I'm going to have the mats for both. I'm just going to do both. But certainly, if we do bounties quickly, we get way more of these re-rolls where we know what's coming out the other side, and all we have to hope for is that it rolls ancient and that it rolls good, which is still a lot to hope for. So those are the two recipes that we were talking about. And that was what the debate was about. This was what the post on Diablo's fan was about. It was about which one of these recipes is going to result in finding you your item faster. Am I going to get ancient Saint Archus through upgrading? Or am I going to get ancient Archus through reforging first? Which one's going to hit first? And how long is it going to take to farm the materials for each one of those recipes? So from here, we're going to go ahead and move on into the preparing for bounties section. Now, how do we get prepped for our bounties? What kind of skills are we using? What kind of cube powers are we using? What legendary gems are we using? What's our goal here? What are we after? Right? We want to do them quickly, so we're after speed. Some of the bounties only require that you click something. So if we have an ability that gives us immunity while channeling something, then we want to take that as well. This means that we don't kill mobs that we don't need to kill. Right? If the bounty tells us go click 4 things, we want to click those 4 things without killing anything and get out of there. There's no reason to kill them. They offer no benefit and there's no purpose. So Let's start by looking at some of our options, right? If we go into our options and we go to our keybinds, there is going to be a item in here that we want to bind. So under the system section, there is an option here called close all open windows. Now this seems like it's not that useful because escape exists, right? You just hit escape and it closes all your windows. I've set this to tab, right? So I just hit tab to close that. Open my bags, hit tab to close it. Talk to Tyrael, hit tab to go through it. Is that really considered a window, right? Tab, I can go through the conversation. Okay, so that's a little bit outside the norm, right? I wouldn't have considered that talk text to be a window that I can close. But it is. And there are oftentimes events in the game where people want to talk to you, and they want to talk your ear off. One bounty that comes to mind is the Nephilim Monument in Festering Woods. Basically, the bounty has you go out into the Festering Woods and find a small square monument. You click it, the monument comes up out of the ground, and then some ghosts run up. Now these ghosts come at you, and they're basically like, stay a while and listen. And you're like, seriously, I'm here to do the bounty. Can we get over this? And they just want to have a conversation. They're ghosts. They haven't had anybody to talk to in a really long time. They're lonely, and they need you. Well, you don't have to listen to them. If you bind this, close all open windows in your system section with tab, and then when they start talking, if you just start spamming tab, then it closes out all the conversations. Even if it's not a window like this, even if it just shows up as a little word bubble over their head with 3 little dots in it, that signifies that they're talking, right? You can speed those up as well. Another example is Belial. In the Belial fight, you go in, you fight 4 snakes, you fight a bunch of snakes, and then he comes down off of his pedestal in his mini demon form. You get him to 10% health, then he ports back up to his pedestal, and he does a tiny little dialogue. I'm an evil monster, you're pathetic, I'm gonna beat you, blah blah blah. You can skip that. Now, because it's so tall, you can't really see that he has a word bubble over him, but just spam tab anyway, and you'll get through 10 seconds of unnecessary standing around doing nothing. And he'll turn into a big demon faster, and you can kill him faster. So that's step 1 in getting your keybinds ready for doing bounties. Now what's the other option that I wanted to take a look at? There was another option that I wanted to make sure was set. Yes, the cinematics. That is going to be in gameplay, and it's likely going to be here somewhere. Automatically skip all cutscenes. So anytime you go into a boss bounty, Belial, Asmodan, everybody has like their little opening cinematic. Skeleton King, literally every boss. In order to get out of the cinematic, you have to hit escape, and then you have to hit yes to confirm. Well, if you check that box in there under the options, you no longer have to hit escape and hit yes. It just cancels them for you. Now, if this is the first time you're playing through the game, maybe watch every boss's cutscene, but by the time you get to the point where you're in adventure mode and you're spamming bounties, you do not want to have to manually do this. So, that one is another mandatory checkbox for getting into bounties. Okay, so that's really it. We want to be able to skip story mode, and we want to be able to skip cinematics. And those 2 settings are going to do that for us. Okay, so now the next thing is going to be speed, right? Now we're playing a very mobile class. We've got Steed Charge. Now this lets us run through enemies. We're already running unhindered through enemies because of illusory boots. The main purpose of this is so that we can run through them even if we're not in horse form. But we're using a swift mount which doubles the duration of Steed Charge. We're stacking an insane amount of CDR, 66.5%, which makes it so that our Steed Charge cooldown comes up every time that Steed Charge ends. We're right back into Steed Charge. And the Steed Charge that we're using does damage as we run through the enemies. So we don't ever actually have to stop to hit an enemy. Unless we run up on a champ pack and we need to blow some of our cooldowns, mostly everything is going to die with us running through it. And that's how you make an effective speed build. You want to be killing the enemies while you pass through them. Or, in the example of a monk that's doing the fire bell drop thing that's going on this season, You're basically dash, dropping a bell, and wiping the screen. Dashing, dropping a bell, wiping the screen. Because that sort of ability, we'll talk about Archon, that's popular this season. Teleport, spin, teleport, spin, teleport, spin. You're basically clearing the entire screen by just spinning. So it might actually even be faster to have a ranged ability like the bell or the beam on Archon to kill an entire screen worth of monsters without actually having to run over them. But I've found this to be extremely productive and extremely effective, just to run over the mobs, run through them, and they all die. Now, this is done in conjunction with a boon of the Hoarder. You'll see the legendary gem, all the orange text at the bottom there. Now this is a 100% chance on killing an enemy to cause an explosion of gold. Okay? Picking up gold increases your speed for 2 seconds after picking it up. Alright, well you're saying to yourself, well if you run through the monster and you kill him and all the gold drops in the back, how are you picking it up? That's a great question. We go to our cube for the answer. The Avarice Band makes it so that each time you pick up gold, you increase your gold and health globe pickup by 1 yard for 10 seconds. This effect stacks 30 times. So, if you run through a group of 30 monsters, your boon of the Hoarder says that each one of them is going to drop gold. 100% chance, right? And then you're going to pick up that gold. Either your pet's going to pick it up or you're going to circle back and pick it up. 30 mobs. Now you're at a 30 stack. Now your pickup radius is 30 yards. 30 yards is basically like this. It's almost your entire screen. So when you enter a new bounty, if you know you're going to be running for a long distance, sometimes you will have to backtrack for some gold just to get the stacks up and running. And then you're going to be in a position where stuff that's near you is just going to get picked up, whether it's by your pet or whether it's by you just having to circle back to get an elite or circle back to kill another, set of monsters that was nearby. Whatever the case may be, you're going to eventually get your stack to 30, and you're always going to have that speed boost because as you run through monsters, they drop gold, you automatically pick it up, and you get to continue going. So this is a huge portion of our speed increase. So we've got a skill that makes us fast, and we've got Boon of the Hoarder working with our Avarice Band to give us another speed boost almost 100% of the time. Of course, the other mandatory things is that you want to make sure your movement speed is capped. You need 25% between your boots or other various items. If you're using a compass rose, you might be getting movement speed there. You need 25% between your items and your paragon. So I've got 11% on my boots, and I've got 14% from my paragon, and then the rest go into strength. So that's movement speed in a nutshell. Now every class has some sort of movement speed set or skill. You've got Witch Doctors with the Manajuma set, which turns them into a chicken. Well, there's a skill that turns you into a chicken, but basically it makes you so you can run as a chicken super fast for a really long period of time. You've got Teleport from Wizards. You've got Barbarians with Sprint. They've also got Wrath of the Berserker, which gives them increased movement speed. You've got Boonable, the Bolcathos weapons that increase your movement speed while you're whirlwinding. All sorts of options out there. So no matter what your class is, no matter what you're trying to speed farm on, find a way to make yourself quick. Use mobility skills and get around the map as fast as humanly possible. If you have a way to damage mobs as you're running through them, that's ideal as well. You don't want to have to run up to something and cleave it to death. You don't want to have to run up to something and smash it with Hoda over and over and over again. You want to kill it and move on at the same time. So that's why a build like this is so strong at doing bounties. Now, some bounties want you to click something, right? So let's use the example of Stone Fort, right? Stone Fort has a bounty. It wasn't this one, but you might remember it from campaign mode where you have to click a catapult, basically, and you're going to channel it, right? Now, if something hits you during that channel, it's going to break it, right? So that basically says, okay, well, I have to kill all the monsters around it so I can channel it without, getting interrupted. Well, skills like Acrorats, you can channel those things without being broken, without getting interrupted. So when the bounty says, go click 5 catapults, I run up to one, I pop Acrorats, and I channel it. And the things beat on me, it's whatever. My bombardment belt goes off, I kill some of them, probably all of them, and then I run on to the next one. And I try and get to the next one before my Acrorats wears off, and channel it, and get it done. And then when I go to the next one, my cooldown's still not up, I use Iron Skin. Iron Skin also allows me to channel things uninterrupted. Now the duration on Iron Skin is usually shorter than the amount of time it takes to channel something. So Iron Skin is going to be hit and miss. It's not always going to work for you, but there are also speed builds that have 100% uptime on their immunity. There are speed builds for the Barbarian that allows you to have 100% uptime on Wrath of Berserker. There are also builds that would allow you to have 100% uptime on Ignore Pain. Both of those skills allow you to channel uninterrupted. Currently there's, I don't know if it's a bug or if it's intended, but whenever you dodge using an immunity skill, it interrupts, right? So you can take all the beats to the face all day long, and then the minute you dodge, it interrupts your channeling. It's really aggravating. You can avoid this by not having any dodge. If we look at my defense sheet, dodge would be in between block and physical resistance. I don't have any skills that give me dodge. If I ran a Gogaka Swiftness, I would have dodge. And then if in Acrorats, I could dodge. So as long as you avoid having dodge, you won't get interrupted. So running Wrath of Berserker may not be the best idea, but if you can get it to where you have 100% uptime on Ignore Pain, or at least a good amount of time on Ignore Pain, then you'd be able to do it. So designing a speed build around maybe not having Wrath of the Berserker, or not using Wrath of the Berserker when you're on a quest where you know you have to click stuff and just channel things. That would be an alternative. We kind of luck out. We don't have any dodge. We're not running Gogok, so as a Crusader, I basically just get to pop Acrorats and channel my my quest objectives. Well, some of the other abilities that I use to protect myself are Consecration. Enemies run into this, they just take huge damage, right? And a lot of times they'll die before they get to me. So if I'm in a situation where I don't have Acrorats up and I don't have Iron Skin up, I'm basically going to physically cast Bombardment, and I'm going to cast my Consecration, and I'm going to start channeling the item and hope that everything dies before it can physically touch me and interrupt that ability. And the same thing goes for clicking those skills as it does for town portaling or using the map to portal to places. Now, in the bounty section after this, you're going to see that I don't go back to town in between bounties. If I'm at a bounty location and I have completed it, most of the time I'm going to pop Acrorats, go to the map, go to the next bounty, and I'm not going to be interrupted, right? And my bombardment actually killed that monster for me. So now I'm at the next bounty, and I travel on my way. So the same rules apply to getting out of the area you're in as they do for clicking your quest objectives for the actual bounties. Now, the gear set that I'm using is really good for kind of everything. This build in particular is great for running bounties, it's great for running T10 speeds, and it's also good at high GRs, with the changing of a couple different things. If I was doing a Greater Rift, I would of course put in my Bane of the Stricken. Increases damage against bosses and Rift Guardians. Now, none of the bosses on T10 are really that difficult. They're not going to take you a long period of time to kill. And that's another thing that you want to focus on. Make sure that your build can also kill single targets. Because every act, except for Act 4, will guaranteed have a boss for you to kill. Act 4 usually has a boss, but it doesn't have to. I don't know why, but sometimes Act 4 is just 5 bounties, no bosses. So this doesn't do anything for you, right? Like, each stack increases your damage, but it has an internal cooldown, and the bosses should be dying in seconds, not minutes, so this, again, just doesn't do anything for you. And the whole premise here is that you don't wear your $3,000 Armani suit to go help a farmer help a cow give birth to a calf. I don't know, name something dirty. You're not doing it in your fanciest clothes, right? So you're not going to do bounties in your Greater Rift set, or even in your Greater Rift skill set, or even in your Greater Rift legendary gems. You're going to have to change the way that you think about what your objective is. You have to change your character based on the task at hand, which we mentioned earlier. And the task at hand is to complete objectives. So think about the bounties that you remember. Think about the bounties that you've seen. You can use the bounty set that I'm about to do as a baseline as well if you're not familiar with all the bounties. See what kind of different objectives they're sending you out to do and build a set and a set of skills that is tailored to getting those objectives completed. So in a Greater Rift, skill-wise, I would probably run a more defensive ability instead of Consecrate. I might run like a Laws of Justice immovable object, right? I might, you know, I obviously wouldn't be running Boon of the Hoarder because in a Greater Rift there is no gold drops. And like I said, Crusaders are really good. They're one set. This set is really good at all three tasks. But not every build is the same. If you were playing an Archon Wizard, you might choose more mobile skills. You might choose an Ingam in the cube rather than a Furnace, right? If we go to, you know, your average wizard is going to have a Furnace here. The Furnace increases damage against elites by 50%. It's really strong because they're the primary DPS in a 4-man Greater Rift group. But when you're doing T10 Rifts, it's likely that you would be using an Ingam, which reduces the cooldown of all your skills by 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack. Now the benefit there is that in a T10 Rift, you're killing elite packs left and right. In fact, that's what you're focusing on. You go into a Rift, you find a champ pack, you kill it, you move to the next one. You kill a champ pack, you kill it, you move to the next one. You're not really worried about the trash mobs around you because most of the progress for completing the Rift comes from the elites. Not to mention that's where the death breaths come from and, you know, all the loot, basically. So you'd have almost 100% uptime on Archon using this item. And since it's a T10 Rift and not like, you know, a GR80 Rift, you don't need 50% extra damage against an elite. You need something that gives you more cooldown so that you can have 100% uptime on the Archon. But even in bounties where the focus isn't killing elites, this doesn't do anything for you, right? So then you got to go, okay, well, I'm an Archon Wizard. I want to be doing bounties. I'm not really guaranteed a bunch of elites on every bounty. I might not find any, and then I won't have 100% uptime on Archon. So how much use am I actually getting out of this Ingam? You might have to go through here and find another item that better suits the play style of doing bounties. Not really sure what that would be, but maybe you find something. Maybe you adjust your bounties to make sure that you kill elites. Maybe when you're running your wizard, you run Nemesis Bracers. I mean, there are a lot of shrines that you're going to walk across, so maybe you use those shrines to keep your Archon procced. You know, whenever your Archon's about to be down, maybe you pop a shrine, you kill the elite pack really quick. You get the cooldown reduction from the Ingam, and then you move on with your bounty. It could still be extremely efficient, but understand that that's a different way of playing and that you're going to have to play a certain style to get those really efficient rifts, or to get those really efficient bounty sets. So we've talked about mobility, right? We talked about using skills that give us mobility. We talked about having maximum movement speed. We've talked about the immunity spells that allow us to channel objective-based bounties without actually having to kill any of the monsters. We've talked about making a build where you can kill things while moving through them. We've talked about changing your settings so that cinematics and role-playing in the game doesn't actually slow you down. We've talked about passive damage, skills like Consecration, skills like Bombardment, things that you can cast and forget about, things that are just going to do damage to enemies while you're doing something else, the objective at hand. Your passives might even change, where sometimes you might be running like a death proc in a Greater Rift. In bounties, it's extremely unlikely that you're going to die to something, so running a death proc in bounties doesn't really do anything for you. You might as well switch to something that might give you more cooldown reduction, or maybe you have a passive that just straight increases your movement speed, or maybe you have a passive that just gives you a little bit more damage, right? You're going to be sacrificing a little bit of damage for speed already, so if you can pick up more damage, it just helps you even that much farther. So that's the gist of it. Find a way to make a build that can work for the objective. You don't want to be overkilling in a zone. You don't want to be constantly trapped trying to kill, having to kill 100 extra monsters just so you can pour it out of the zone. You don't want to have to kill every monster on a quest where you're just supposed to click an objective. You're not out there hunting goblins. You're not out there hunting elites. You only need enough damage to kill the white mobs to get the kill counts. That's it. So when you're making your build, when you're getting your speed build up, keep those things in mind, because those are by far the most important things to doing bounties efficiently. So it's bounty time. You can see we've got a timer in the lower right. We're going to start that, get that going, and then we're just going to hammer these out like I would normally do them. So the mindset that I need to get myself in and that you need to get used to is goblins don't matter, chests don't matter, loot doesn't matter. The whole purpose here is the objective that appears on the right hand side of the screen. That's it. You're only here to complete each task and move on to the next one. That's how we get through bounties, and that's how we get to our reward. We don't get our reward until the act is completed, right? We are looking for that bonus extra cash awarded. That's what we want. We want these extra caches. Our reward comes when we've completed every act to its fullest. And each objective has a certain goal in mind. That's all we're here for, right? So that's the hardest part, getting yourself keyed in and avoid all the distractions. Put the blinders on, so to speak. So let's go ahead and just get started. Now, disclaimer, if I come across a menagerist, I'm probably killing it because I don't have all the pets yet. But with that one exception, if a goblin dies just randomly, we're good. But otherwise, here we go. All right. So the first thing we're going to point out is that you do not have to be on the center tile to use the waypoint. You can do it from anywhere in town. Now, the Weeping Hollow is a big zone, and it has a lot of monsters in it, right? So we only have to kill 100 of them. Don't want to waste too much time just killing a bunch. We still need to find Tephany, and now we've got the ping, so we've got our target. Done. We don't worry about picking up gold, we don't worry about getting loot. We end in Akarat so that we can port out while getting hit. That Quill Beast hit us, so, you know, normally we would have been interrupted on our teleport there, but we want to make sure that we end with Akarats if possible, or we want to duck into a little, you know, cave like we just saw in this zone. Alright, so we found our named, and any bounty where the named is accompanied by a kill count, you either want to find him early, or you want him to be the very last kill, right? If we're talking about maximum efficiency, he would be the last kill. Now in short zones like this, oftentimes I won't port out. I'll just run back to the waypoint and take the instant port from there. I could have stopped and I could have town portaled, or rather, you know, used the map to port, but there really wasn't a need for that. I was close enough with Horse Steed Charge to get back to where I wanted to use the waypoint rather than use the port, which has a cast time. So we are here for this event. This event really just requires that you trigger these 3 things. Kill the named mob. We're spamming our... If you notice the little chat bubble over the ghost's head, as he was talking to us, we were spamming our close all open windows button to speed through that. That drops loot, but we don't really need the loot. We're just going to try and finish up our 50 kills, and there we go. And on to the next bounty. You'll notice that when I open my map, I'm not really looking to see what the next bounty is. I'm just going, right? If you're playing a solo game, you have to do all the bounties. Why worry yourself about what the bounty is? Odious Collector, some people might go, wow, I really need those materials right now, but that's not what we're here for. If this was a kill quest, I might have killed him because he was already in a group of other enemies and picked up the mats, but he was not our objective, the Skeleton King was. There was literally no killing needing to be done on the Royal Crypts. If I want to farm goblins, I'll just make a game, go into the Royal Crypts, check to see if there's a goblin. If there's not, we'll rinse repeat. So, again, that's the mindset. We're not here for goblins. Then you might be tempted to pick that up, but you can hold control, hover over the item, and see what it is. It's a selenium. I don't need one of those. And I don't need a Forgotten Souls that bad, right? Now, I almost went and got that Pool of Reflection, which was not part of my mindset, but we managed to keep ourselves from doing it. Now, Cave of the Moon Clan is another place where you've got a good chance to find goblins. Yep, we got one on the first floor. But our objective is to get to the second floor and kill all the monsters. A lot of times with shrines, if it's fleeting or empowered, that helps you. It actually makes you complete the bounties faster. So if you happen to see one with those things, then by all means take it. So that one was empowered, which we like. This build is very cooldown heavy. Now in a bigger zone, we might let the goblin go, because we'd have more kills to do, but because it's a very small zone and it actually takes him longer to leave than it does for us to just kill him, we went ahead and killed him. But I didn't really worry myself with the loot. I saw that it was a ring, but it could be any ring. It could be an arc stone for all I know. Coming into this bounty, you want to make sure that you are paying attention to whether or not it's Battle Crown, or Sky Crown Battlements, or whether it's Stone Fort, because the port is Stone Fort, but you actually have to go back into the previous zone to complete the bounty. So you don't want to just run up those stairs and then end up halfway through Stone Fort before you realize the bounty's back here. This zone is large, and there aren't a lot of really big packs of enemies. So you kind of want to get as many kills as you can, but without spending too much time just circling around checking every little side pocket. There will eventually be big groups, and you can get all of the kills without doing any backtracking. You might end up all the way at the door, and that's fine. I'm going to show you this path, because if you needed to come to this big group to get all your kills, it's not worth porting out. Just go back into the keep. This is considered the town tile set, so you get your instant ports. Easy peasy. This is another kill quest, where we have to clear out the bottom floor of a 2-floor dungeon. This one's a little bit longer, but we have our ping right off the bat. And you can open up your map to get a better sense of where the ping is actually coming from, or you can kind of just follow the direction that it's having you go. This is taking us back up, so this is clearly the wrong way. We're going to come down a little bit more. Don't know what shrine that was. If we were in the second floor, I would check to see what that shrine was before I clicked it. Because anytime I click a shrine, my Nemesis Bracers spawn an elite pack. Spawning an elite pack adds to the total number of monsters that have to be killed on the floor. So as we kill these, at some point when we get down to about the last 15, it's going to tell us that we have X number of monsters left to slay. And so that's enlightened. I'm just checking these side rooms so that I don't have to come back for them, because you do have to kill everything in here. This one is one of the bigger floor 2s. You'll learn to hate these really huge maps, especially as they put more and more annoying small creatures on them that you can never seem to find all of in one pass. Alright, so we're down to 11 enemies, right? If I go back and I click that Enlightened Shrine, it will spawn a champ pack, and the number of monsters in that pack will then be added to that enemy's remaining total. So, when you're in a place like this, there's really no need to click a shrine that you don't need, like Enlightened, or Protection, or Fortune. You don't need any of those effects for bounties. Now, Ironsmith Maldonado he's on floor 1, right? But floor 2 is right by the door up to floor 1. And it just so happens that the tile that this event is on is always right here by that portal, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the shortcut. Rather than... See, there's no bounty in Keep Depths 2, but we came here to get to floor 1. But we don't actually have to stay for that bounty. It's a timed bounty in which they spawn wave after wave of skeletons, and then eventually they spawn a named skeleton which they want you to kill. But you don't actually have to be there for the whole thing. There's no reason to. So instead of staying there and waiting for the time to run out, I'll go to another bounty, I'll complete the other bounty, and then I'll return to that one and kill the last guy and the remaining skeletons, and it will be over. So essentially, I'm saving the entire length of that time event and doing something else with that time. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go back to Keep Depths 2 and then go upstairs to level 1 where we know the tile is going to be. And bounty done. Super easy. So with that done, we are almost at the 10-minute mark, and we're almost done with 2 full acts. So, doing pretty good. Act 4 could be easy. This is one of those zones that's really big, and they've put a really small amount of mobs needed to be killed. So right now we're just looking for a big grouping of them, and it's usually these little scorpion guys. Kind of just let our bombardment do a little work. If we have to run away, we have to run away. We didn't have Acrats up there to port. But we want it here, right? So we pop Acrats and we click the device. We don't stop to kill anything. Almost every class has some sort of immunity skill that allows them to click devices and teleport out of areas without needing to actually kill the monsters around it. Now in this one, I popped Iron Skin, and that wasn't enough. We were out of Acrats there. There really wasn't much I could do. Iron Skin doesn't last as long as the channeling required, so I kind of just had to go with killing the monsters. But my bombardment belt killed most of them, and I was able to just sit there and spam click. So having a build that's of this style that has passive damage can help you in situations like that. Not every build has that. Frenzy Shrine doesn't do anything for us. It might do quite a bit for you, depending on your build. Here we just followed the arrow. That map's not very twisty or windy. It's pretty straightforward. You just follow the arrow and you end up at your target. Killing Diablo is one of the longer bosses because of the number of cutscenes. I'd actually recommend saving your cooldowns for this second phase. If you have the ability to get some sort of stun or blind, I recommend it. It allowed me to skip everything in that phase. Normally, Diablo would walk up to you, disappear, and then summon a mirror of yourself. And then you'd have to fight the mirror of yourself. And then after you killed that, she'd come back, he'd come back, Diablo would come back, and you'd have to do damage to it. And then if you didn't do enough damage, she would disappear again and summon another mirror. And you basically just do this 3 more times until you kill her. But if you can blind her and stop her from disappearing, then you can immediately push her back into this phase, which is phase 3. So I basically skipped an entire phase because I had blind on my bar. So whenever you get an objective in Gardens of Hope 3rd tier that says enter something, assuming that it's not one of the red portal missions, it's going to be on the bottom portion of your screen, right? So it's going to be here, 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 or on the next one. And then there's going to be an objective for you to complete. In this case, it's a cursed chest. Now, cursed chests are another event that you don't actually have to be here for. So I'm going to town to portal, and then I'm going to pick another bounty. Okay, so we're going to go do portal to the archives. All right, now this is a perfect example of this. We're going to go back to 3. The bounty is on the second one, but we're going to go back to our waypoint on the 3rd, and we're actually going to enter the portal that takes us back to 2. Now this puts us on the other side of the map. This was where the waypoint is. This is the other side. Now this in between is a maze, right? It's not really a maze. It's not that difficult, but it's not super direct. So A lot of times they like to put things on the opposite side of the map from where you start to try and make it, take more time. Bounties are usually out to get you. Right, so this run was faster than this run. And I almost always start on the other side because many a times they like to put the thing as far away from you as possible. So I assume the worst and I go to the other side. So another situation where instead of taking the waypoint that has your bounty on it, you're taking a different waypoint that you know connects back to the map. Now this bounty is a little bit more time consuming than the other red portal bounties because you actually have to kill a whole bunch of champ packs, but otherwise it's not that bad. Now we're going to port back to town because we want to use our town portal that we set up, but we have to use the map to do it. So I opened the map and I chose to go to town with it. And that means that my town portal is still here in this cursed chest that I abandoned, right? And now the timer has run out and all I have to do is kill all the monsters that spawned. Okay, bounty completed. So we didn't have to sit there for the minute or however long. Basically, we used the time that we would normally just be sitting there fighting monsters for no reason, and we instead went and did a different bounty. I hear a goblin. Okay, so we gotta kill 100 guys, and we gotta kill Khatun. Don't really know where this guy is. If he were on this side, we would have already gotten the ping. So I'm just going to be killing monsters. These little guys that come out of the corruption are pretty good. Right, just big kill counts, right? That's all we're looking for. This zone is really small, so we know where we're going to find him. He's going to be, on one of these small bridges. I checked that chest because there are mysterious chests in this zone that can have falcon wings. If you are farming wings or transmogs, this is likely a place that you are familiar with. Alright, so we needed to have killed a little bit more. I thought there were going to be more monsters on that end of the map. Turns out that they're all over here. But it's not all that bad. We're just going to come back over here and use this waypoint again. Anytime you can use a waypoint is a great time. Okay, now this bounty, Stinging Winds, appears in the middle of two zones. It's in between Road to Alcarnus and it's in between Black Canyon Mines, which used to have a waypoint but doesn't anymore. So Stinging Winds is actually two zones. It's this lower zone and it's the zone to our right. Now the bounty that we have is to free prisoners in Stinging Winds. And this bounty is always on this portion of the Stinging Winds. It's on the right portion, not the lower portion. This bounty is another mission, or another bounty where the only objective that you have is to free these people, which means that all you have to do is click the cage. You don't have to kill anything here, and there's no reason to. Again, you want to have a skill that allows you to be immune to getting hit, basically. It allows you to keep channeling either your portal or your map channel or, clicking a thing while you're channeling a certain item. Alright, so that bounty's done. And we noticed when we went to Road to Alcarnus that we have Magda up. So rather than trying to port 5 feet, I'm just going to ride back over here. And obviously, we've talked about it, speed is key. You need to have some sort of mobility skill. Not every class is going to be as fast as this, but either have a skill or just get, really good at porting. Even if you have to port a short distance. Just kind of get a feel for which one's faster. If it's faster to port, then port. If it's faster to, ride over there using your mobility skill, use your mobility skill. Sometimes you want to look at your other ones, see if you have a cursed shrine, right? Or cursed chest. If we had another cursed chest, we'd want to go start it before we finish the act so that we can, do something else while the cursed chest is active. We don't actually have one up, so it's not a big deal. Looking to get 100 kills and kill a guy named Thrum. 100 kills in here is pretty easy. Those little shadow fiends that we're running over now, there are tons of them. We're already at 60. So really we just kind of want to find our name guy. And bounty done. Now, the Shrine of Rakanishu is a very specific tile set, and a lot of times it's in the northern part of Dog Ear Oasis. There are two sections to it, basically. And where we just ported the channel, the outside of this area, it leads into Dog Ear Oasis at the top of the map. Every time, always at the top. It's a fixed position. So we're probably going to port back to that mid-channel area and then go outside rather than using the waypoint. Now the waypoint can be right next to that channel exit, but it's likely going to give us better results more of the time. So again, it's playing the probability game. So we're going to go back to the ancient waterway and then port out into this zone. Now our waypoint is way down there, so you see that we have two entrances into this map, one on either end, and that's what happens most of the time. But this tile for Shrine of Rakanishu a lot of times spawns right here, down from this door. So again, I was just playing the numbers game. More than likely it was going to be here, so this is the path that I took. We got a pretty easy set there. A pretty easy set. Okay, so we're at 20 minutes. 4 acts done, right? Are we at 4 acts done? Yep, 5's our last one. Repository of Bone is kind of annoying. Now, West March Heights is a big zone, so it's not often that you're going to get lucky and just have the door be right there. But I'd say it's probably about 50-50. Sometimes you have to run forever. Sometimes it's, it's right there. Easy to find. Now, this place is awful, and I'm killing for no reason. This is how we get distracted, right? We need to get to level 2 before we actually start doing our killing. Now, this zone is irritating, as I was saying, because those little rat mobs like to kind of just hide in corners, and they're easy to overlook, and sometimes when I'm horse charging around, they just run right past me, and they don't actually get hit. So a lot of times you got to get yourself down to that, like, 15 monsters left so that you can tell where they are. They'll get that little yellow circle around their feet. They'll show up on the map as little skull targets. Right now I don't care if that goblin escapes. I kind of hope that he does. That way I don't have to kill him. And there's our last rat. Cursed Shrines, Magic Missile, Adria. At least we don't have Malthiel. Malthiel is probably one of my least favorite bounties. Now this is ridiculous. This is our bounty. And it's not even 6 feet from the waypoint. Now the cemetery is 2 large maps connected by an adjoining, like, bridge type section. So normally if it's in the area in which you spawn in, meaning that if that portal was anywhere in the top section, let's call it a top section, you would have probably gotten a ping for it the minute that you spawned in. If you didn't get a ping, then chances are it's in the lower section, or the other part that's connected by the little bridge type area. Is this wall gonna go away? What do I still have left? One guy? Okay. So it's basically section 1, section 2, little bridge area. If you don't get the ping where you start, chances are it's in the other area. So you want to just find a wall northeast, south, and west and try and find that adjoining section. Once you've found the adjoining section, then you'll likely be close enough that you'll get the ping. Now, this zone, finding Adria, it's basically a bunch of circles. Sometimes it's one circle connected by 2 legs that go to, one goes to the starting area, one goes to a dead end, and one goes to the event where she is. Sometimes they can be extremely misleading, but we're still trying to get up here. Which we're getting closer to, but now we're going to be going left. We still need to be going down. Right, so... where was our circle? Nowhere? Did we actually not have a circle? I'm guessing this would have looped back around. This would have looped over to here. So that was our circle with 2 legs. The map generally follows the same pattern, so just pay attention to the map, and as you do them more and more often, you'll kind of get a feel for how it goes. Okay, so when we open our map, we see that our ping is a really long way off. So we've already got the ping, which is super early considering how far we are away from it. But basically, we're just going to keep trying to work our way there. It's kind of just guesswork, right? You don't want the map to end. And really, right now, I'm just playing off the mini-map. So this type of tile usually leads into an intersection, and that leads us down, right? So... not super complicated. Sometimes they can be a little misleading, but most of the time they're about that easy. Just follow the arrow, run toward the direction, profit. At the beginning of this, you saw that he had the little word bubble over his head right there with the 3 dots in it. He's talking, and I am making him stop talking by continually spamming my close all open windows button that I've bound, that we talked about earlier. So instead of listening to his story, I have made him quit talking. This one's kind of uncommon. I don't get this one very often. 150 monsters in this place. It's not overly difficult, but as you can tell, the monsters aren't really standing in big piles for you. Now, normally I don't kill elites. I had my cooldowns up, so I stopped, and I got 3 kills. Right? That was all I was looking for. I just wanted to kill 3 things, since most of these packs have been 2 monsters the entire time. It's the little boggets that we're kind of looking for, the bats. Anything that we can kill in large quantities. Obviously, if your gear is not at this point, definitely don't focus on the elites. Focus on killing all the just normal monsters. If you happen to find an event that you know spawns more monsters, by all means. This has been fairly painful. A lot of the monsters in here like to spawn after you've run past them, so doing a second pass isn't a bad idea. We're close enough to the waypoint that I'm just going to use the waypoint. And that's it. That's a full game's worth of bounties. Solo, T10, 27 minutes. And we even stopped to talk about some of them, right? Stopped to show the map, so we could probably take, you know, a handful of seconds off of that, if not a full minute, just from some of my descriptions and some of the map looking at that we did. So, alright. The game is done. Now we need to turn in. And we want to make sure that we're always turning in the bonus bounty. So, bonus bounty. Port to the next town. And of course, you can always invite your friends at this point. In fact, doing the game without turning in any of the bounties makes it so that if you have friends that you want to give these to, but you can't do it in a 4-player game, you're just not as fast, you don't have as much damage, whatever the case may be, saving them all up and then inviting your friends at the end and telling them, look, guys, don't touch anything, I'll turn them in. Make sure that you get all the bonuses turned in. Now, you'll notice that I just turned in 4. And since 4 and 3 share a town, he still has an exclamation point. If I turn this in, I will not get the bonus because the bonus is not on 3 right now. There are times when it goes from 3 to 4 or from 4 to 3, and you can just turn them both in immediately, but this is not one of those cases. The bonus is now on 5, so we have to go to 5 to turn it in. Right? And now it's going to go back to 3, so in the town we were just in. I'm going to come back to Serial and turn that in, and then, yeah, we already did 2. So, that's it. So now we've got 10 caches. You can take a look at the contents of these caches. So we've separated them out. These are the normal caches that we get from completing, and these are the bonus caches. Right? So the bonus caches drop gold, about 500,000. Blood shards, 5 of the crafting material. That was clearly the Act 1, tells you, Act 1. That was the Act 1 bonus cache. And then it just drops some reusable parts and some bell crystals. Okay? Same thing. Same thing again. You're starting to get the picture here. The bonus cache is crafting materials and blood shards. Or blood shard capped. Alright, so that's the bonus caches. That's what you can expect. We got 5 of each Act crafting material. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, and Act 5. 5 of each. We ended up with 100 Veil Crystals, 300 Arcane Dust, and 300 usable parts. This is a really good way to farm these mats. But how many Death Breaths did we end up with? None, right? So the upgrade from rare recipe, we're not getting one of the key components for that. Now this was an Act 1 cache. Doesn't actually tell you which act they were from, but they're in order, so it's likely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, no, they weren't turned in order, so I know that it's 1 because this is a Royal Ring of Grandeur, and these are probably Pauldrons of the Skeleton King. So very little crafting mats from the normal cache. Just not a lot. We basically got 2 legendaries, and that's it. This is Act 2, and we got 2 legendaries. And some gems. No blood shards, though. Those are still from the bonus caches. Okay? This was Act 4. I know that it's Act 4 because it dropped another pair of Pauldrons of the Skeleton King, which Act 4 is unique in that its caches can drop legendaries from any of the other acts. So it is possible to get triplicates if you manage to get double of the same off of 1 bounty. This is Act 5. We know that because we got Westmarch Holy Water and because this is a Pandemonium loop. And the last one, in this one, we actually managed to get a non-bounty specific legendary. This does not normally come from bounties. This is just a, you had a chance at getting an extra legendary, that's what you get. Okay? And then we got an Envious Dagger. So, all of these items go ahead and get the yellows out of there. All of these items are bounty specific legendaries, and this one is a non-bounty specific legendary. Now normally I wouldn't ID these because I know most of this is garbage, but to give you guys an idea of the certain legendaries you can get, Illusory Boots, these come from Act 2, Envious Blade, Act 3, Boots of Disregard and the extra Pauldrons of the Skeleton King both came from Act 4. This was a random drop. Act 1, Act 2, Act 1, Ring of Royal Grandeur, and Act 5, Pandemonium Loop. Alright, so in total, what did we walk away with? Walked away with about 300 reusable parts and Arcane Dust, 129 Veil Crystals, 9 Forgotten Souls, because we broke everything down, some odd random assortment of gems, and then 10 of each bounty crafting material. And that about wraps it up. So all in all, we talked about a little bit of everything, but our primary focus was on bounty efficiency. And I hope that if you were looking for information on how to do bounties more efficient, that you managed to take something away from it. This might all be common knowledge. You might have known everything that I said in this video, and unfortunately I wasn't able to give you any additional knowledge, but hopefully it helps somebody. Thank you for watching it, regardless. I've really enjoyed doing bounties this season, and I think a lot of that comes from playing the Legacy of Nightmares Crusader. This build is a lot of fun. It was fun to put together. It's different from your other builds where you're trying to get your 6 set piece, you're trying to use a Ring of Royal Grandeur. So it was different and it was enjoyable. In the past, I almost always play a Barbarian exclusively, so my speed builds always consisted of some sort of Whirlwind build or some sort of Raycore build. And bounties can still be a little bit frustrating, albeit quick, can still be a little frustrating due to the dodge chance on Wrath of Berserker and the interrupts that I get while I'm channeling objectives. So the Crusader doesn't have any of those problems. It's a very, very fluid objective to objective style of play, and I've had a lot of fun with it. It's also been probably the most efficient class/build that I've ever done bounties on. And I've recently started pushing the last like 1,000 bounties I need to get to 10,000 bounties completed for the achievement. So it's been a nice change of pace to have a class that I'm enjoying doing bounties on. And it's really the first season that I've put a lot of effort into reforging legendaries, right? Because I'm doing bounties a lot, I'm getting a lot of those act-specific crafting materials, and I'm using those to reforge legendaries, and I've actually had pretty decent luck with it. Some of my items have been a little frustrating. They've required, 20 to 50 rolls before I've ever gotten what I'm looking for, but other ones were within 10 rolls, 15 rolls, I found an item that was, either blowing me away because it just happened to roll the stats that I wanted, or at least was good enough that I could roll it into something that I wanted to use. So I've been pleasantly surprised by both things, how smooth the Crusader is at doing bounties and at how efficiently I'm able to get the materials, combined with how surprised I am that Reforged Legendary is actually pretty decent. So I think that's about it. Thank you guys again for watching. If you guys ever want to catch me live, you can find the information in the description to my Twitch channel. You can follow me on Twitter. I always post there when I'm going live or when I put up new videos. And that's about it. So I will see you guys out there.